Magalhaes to Stokes, who's onside. 1-0.
Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 61 of the Saints FC podcast. This week, first of all, I'll be catching up with Freddie from the Ugly Inside as we caught up with each other over a pint before the game on Friday night, and then we'll have a little bit of an old friend back on the show as Tom Parker, back from his wedding and honeymoon exploits, joins me as we discuss Saints' recent fortunes and a look forward to the rest of the season as well. Hi, Freddie. I've gone for an Amstel, keeping it lager.
This is almost sort of like a tradition now, isn't it? On the Saints FC podcast, we're asking what we're drinking.
Yeah. What are you drinking?
I'm currently drinking the Malt Smiths, which is quite a hoppy sort of a cold actual ale, if you like, off the draft, and it's refreshing.
Yeah,
most and foremost, that's what we need from match day, don't we, mate?
Yeah, exactly. Unusually for the Saints FC podcast, we're recording pre-match. When this goes out, the result will be known. We'll either be sat in despair or, dancing around the fact that we've pretty much ended the Premier League in terms of the relegation battle and the title battle.
Yeah.
What are our chances tonight of us actually getting a result against Liverpool and really denting their title hopes?
Well, wouldn't it be such a sweet victory to beat them tonight,
it really
right?
would, yeah.
I mean, after all that's happened, and this is their year, though, isn't it? Right? That's what they keep saying.
Isn't every year their year? It's going to be different. I mean, the whole thing that I love about the fact that all these players have left Southampton and gone to Liverpool to win trophies. Not a single one of them have won a trophy since they've left.
Not even the League Cup.
No, I mean, I would genuinely love it if we can keep that record to still be the same.
I mean, tonight, we're full of confidence, though, aren't we? Back-to-back wins within a 3-week break.
I mean, this little chat has the potential to sound incredibly stupid.
But, I mean, if you look at it statistically, we haven't done 3 wins in a row in nearly 3 or 4 years since Ronald Koeman, in fact.
Okay, yeah.
So if we manage to beat Liverpool, not only would it be sweet, but we'd also, stop their chances of winning the title, and it would see us safe, like you said, and we can go into this game with no pressure.
Yeah.
Like we've been saying, sort of on various different reports all week. This is a free hit. I mean, I don't like saying that phrase, but it is a free hit. We've got a cushion above the drop zone, and we've got nothing to lose.
And I think, if you're Ralph and you're in the changing room right now, you're getting the players hyped up for the game, what are you going to be saying? Are you going to be saying it's a free hit? I don't imagine Ralph Hasenhüttl says that sort of thing. I think he sends them out feeling like they need to win points in every single game. Is there a little bit of a risk that we start to take our eye off the ball? We're not safe yet, are we?
No, not quite. I mean, I had a couple of comments, actually, truth be told, on our match day match build-up show. Despite us saying this is a free hit, we've got a cushion between the drop zone, but we are still fighting relegation. Of course, there is a little element of fear. I mean, there are a few teams that aren't playing this weekend because of FA Cup duties, Brighton in particular, but it's 5 points, and we've got a favourable run-in than the other teams around us. Cardiff, Brighton, Burnley all had to play 3, at least 4 of the top 6 in their running. Liverpool is the only team in the top 6 that we've got to play left in the top until the end of the season. Wolves, next weekend's going to be tough as well. They're flying high, but everyone else, we almost expect feeling a victory because of our confidence at the moment. No, we're winning games, we're playing good football. We're being direct, and finally we're seeing the philosophy that we all know and love once again back on the pitch.
I mean, should we just talk about that? Because, regardless of the result, I don't think the Ralph Hasenhüttl loving is going to stop. But it really is a loving at the moment. I mean, what is it about Ralph that you love right now, Freddie?
It's so romantic, isn't it?
We should be recording this on Valentine's Day.
I know.
I can see that you've gone all glossy-eyed, Freddie.
I don't know. Is that the beer talking? I don't know. We haven't had many yet. Only until we win tonight. But Ralph is doing everything that we want.
Yeah.
We saw none of that under Mark Hughes. We saw no opportunities for Hughes to, interact with the fans. I mean, the first week in, Ralph bought us all a beer.
Yeah.
Truth be told, my voucher came late. I wasn't able to redeem it. And then I couldn't redeem it because I was doing other things before the West Ham game. I mean, good for the club for moving the voucher over. But, stuff like that, it's what really gets the fans on side. And Mark Hughes was almost sort of like this robot.
Yeah.
He almost tactically on the pitch as well. He was robotic. We almost sort of predicted the substitutions that were gonna happen. But Ralph, he's got more things to him. He's got more options, and he's got more things in his locker. We've been playing this 5-3-2, 5-4-1. Despite it being the same formation that Mark Hughes played, we see more potential under Ralph. But even so, we do play the 3-4-2-1 or whatever.
Yeah.
We've also got the 4-2-2-2 in the locker as well. Under Mark Hughes, it was almost sort of, oh, well, that's it then.
Yeah.
Well, what should we do now? I don't know. Let's just roll over and concede another goal, concede another late goal. Oh, we're 2-0 up. Oh, yeah, let's go for another goal. No, that's all right. Let's let's sit back and invite the team into pressure.
I mean, it's just been so transformative under Hughes and since Hughes, and under Hasenhüttl. And I think maybe the game which typifies that the most is our away victory to Brighton. I mean, how did you feel in that game with a lead 1-0? I mean, were you expecting Glenn Murray to score, or did you believe? Because the players, I think they do believe now, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They all believe in the manager. They all believe in their process. They all believe in their responsibilities. Nobody knew that under Mark Hughes, and obviously it was a little bit of squeaky bum time against Brighton last weekend. But they never really threatened. And I suppose, I can slightly disagree with that comment, but I think the game that really typifies it is the game before, Tottenham Hotspur at home.
Yeah.
I mean, how many points have we won from losing positions before that game? Like 1 or 2,
is
right?
Is this a quiz? Because I don't know the answer.
Because that was the first time we won a game from a losing position in almost 18 months, 24 months.
Is it seriously that long?
Yeah,
I mean, that's astonishing, isn't it?
Not only that, we beat another top 6 side.
Yeah.
I mean, we thought it was almost astronomical, almost sort of fantasy to beat Arsenal at home in his second game in charge, his first home game, in fact. And that game really sort of set the precedent. We can beat Arsenal. This is only his first week in charge.
Yeah.
Who knows what can happen for the rest of the season?
Yeah. And I suppose, I mean, are we too early to be thinking about next season? But I'm really quite excited about.
Me too.
I mean, I don't think we'd have even kind of broached the subject on the podcast of what life could be like next season. But Hasenhüttl has now given me that confidence to think that maybe we can start planning for another season in the Premier League. I think we just signed a young Birmingham striker this week from their academy, and I think if you're a decent young player around the country right now, you're probably looking at what Ralph has done in giving the academy players a chance. And you look at kind of like Callum Hudson-Odoi, who only got his first Premier League game for Chelsea the week just gone.
Yeah.
A Southampton exciting prospect again, potentially for other players.
I mean, if you look at it statistically as well, Ralph has picked up. I mean, this is doing the rounds, of course. Everybody knows this by the time I say this, but it's 24 points in 16 games. It's 1.5 points per game, which will put us on average 57, 58 points at the end of the season. That has been good enough to be challenging for Europa League over the last 2-3 seasons. Yeah. So he's building something here. We're all excited about it. You know, we're actually relishing the chance to watch Southampton again.
Yeah.
Under obviously before Christmas, whilst Hughes was here, we thought, oh great, another game. Oh, how many are we going to lose by again? But we've got that confidence now. We've got that belief. And ultimately, that's
the
what
mood
he's
has
done.
just totally changed, isn't it?
So much.
Yeah.
So much.
All right, Freddie, can I get a prediction?
We're feeling confident. I mean, I said to you this off air. It's the head versus heart, isn't it? You know. Let's start with the heart. And I'll say this, to the podcast. I put on a cheeky bet tonight. Saints to win and both teams to score at 15-1.
And how much did you put on, Freddie?
Just £1.
Just £1.
Just
okay.
£1.
So 15 quid. I mean, it's not even going to cover the match ticket. But
no,
you know.
well, it'll cover the beers
Yeah,
at least,
okay.
But obviously, the head says, a Liverpool victory, and there's a reason why perhaps Saints are only 8-1 just to win.
Yeah.
I think both teams will score, but I don't know, man. It'll probably be 2-1 either way, and likely to be Liverpool. But we won't show that to the podcast.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, brilliant, Freddie. Great to see you again. And let's have a few more beers before this game starts.
Thanks, mate.
Sure. And I am absolutely delighted to say that we are welcoming back the man, the legend, the person who's been gallivanting around the world, getting married, having honeymoons, all that sort of stuff. Tom Parker, it's great to have you back on the show. How the devil are you?
I'm really good, John. It's great to be back. Absolutely delighted. I've had 3 weeks of wedding and honeymoon, but you can't have too much for good things. I'm very happy to be back in the UK. I'm very happy to be back talking to you.
Are you suggesting that maybe being back in the UK and not out on a honeymoon is not quite the same level?
No, I'm just saying that they're different.
Okay.
No one made me go to work on my honeymoon. But I can't grumble. No, I'm really well, thanks, John. Really well.
Okay, great. And I suppose I think kind of when you went off on your wedding day was the result against Manchester United, which was disappointing to lose, but fantastic performance from the Saints boys. And things have been going pretty well for Saints. I mean, we've had 2 games since the last podcast episode, and one of those was the victory against Brighton. The other one was the loss versus Liverpool just on a Friday night. Should we start with the good one, with the win?
Yeah, and a win against a bogey team with a bogey player that always does the sin, doesn't he? Great win.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Saints fans were worried about this one.
Yeah, I think so. And I wonder how many Saints fans maybe had a little bit of a flutter on Glenn Murray to score a last-minute winner against Saints. Because, I mean, it always seems to happen. But, I mean, what's the difference that we don't have Wesley Hoot or Cedric in defence? Is that why we were able to kind of defend that slender lead that we had right until the game was all over?
I just had a shudder through my spine when I heard the words Wesley Hoot. I think what was interesting, wasn't it? Because I think when you saw the team, you saw Vestergaard, not there. Brighton are a very big physical team. I think that, they score a lot of goals from set pieces. The 2 centre-backs often score goals. So you sort of feared from Saints, 4-4-2, and no Vestergaard. Bogey team, it didn't look good. But, the Saints did as they've done a lot under Ralph, did a very professional job, didn't they? Managed that game brilliantly. And a few of the players really stood out. I think Redmond really stood out. In particular, they just did a very professional job. Something that under Mark Hughes they never seemed to do today.
No, I mean I don't know why. A lot of things have kind of come out with some of the comments that players have been making about training under Ralph Hasenhüttl, that perhaps the atmosphere wasn't as professional under Mark Hughes in total, and players weren't showing up to training on time, and the training sessions were quite casual.
Because I'd have thought Mark Hughes played professional football until he was about 60 years old, didn't he? When he was playing for Saints at the end. And, so you imagine Mark Hughes was someone who really looked after himself. Do you know what I mean? And was very professional. That's the impression I would always got, compared to some of the... because there was a big drinking night, wasn't there? Like McClare and Brian Robson and Paul McGrath, at the time Hughes was there as a player. So you'd have thought Hughes would instill a similar sense of professionalism in his players, but obviously, well, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably. Should we just not talk about Hughes? Because
Yeah, let's. Yeah, right.
I mean,
Sorry,
there's so many things that are like really confusing about his reign. I mean, absolutely, the professionalism thing is one, and you know that the kind of professionalism that Ralph Hasenhüttl has brought in seems to be translating onto the pitch, and Saints did a very, very professional job. I suppose as well, if we're going to be talking about the sort of tactics and approach that Hasenhüttl is using, then the lineup, and you kind of touched on that with Vestergaard being out of the side, was quite interesting. It was quite a Hasenhüttl that we'd read about before he came to Saints and before he started working with three centre-backs, realising our kind of frailties. But he started with that 4-2-2-2 formation.
Yeah, and it's one that they think he's ultimately working towards. But I think defensively, we've just looked so much more vulnerable with four at the back. But all in all, you know, it was a very professional performance because they kind of managed Brighton. And Brighton didn't even really start the game until they went behind. But a player like Bednarek, you know, had a great game. Redmond had a really strong game. You know, and we had a little bit of luck at the end with what could have been a penalty. You know, Brighton hit the ball. You don't seem to have much luck. So, you know, really, really good result.
Yeah, and you've mentioned a couple of players there as well that I wanted to kind of mention as well. I mean, in the kind of Brightish start, I thought Redmond and Armstrong both looked really quite lively and really quite likely to do something. And then obviously with the Højbjerg goal, we had that kind of interception pretty much on the halfway line. And then Redmond bringing the ball all the way. But pretty much, I mean, it wasn't so much up the wing, but actually fairly direct, straight towards goal with Højbjerg on the overlap. And a beautiful little dink pass from Redmond to get it across to Højbjerg, who was kind of bearing down on goal and then finished the job with a lovely little dink into the goal.
Yeah, I think it kind of, if you think about it, it kind of showed the best of the three players involved because you had Højbjerg with a great tackle to win the ball back, Armstrong with a lovely first time pass with great pace on the ball to Redmond, and then Redmond's, you know, very driving, very purposeful run towards the centre of the goal, and then finding the pass, and then Højbjerg, just these lung-busting runs, you know, that he does. You know, we'll talk about the Liverpool game, but it was another one of them in the Liverpool game for the Saints goal. These sort of real, everything he's got, every sinew of his body straining to get up there. And I remember when I watched it, I just thought, yeah, he wants that more than any of the Brighton players. He wants that ball more than any of them. And, you know, it was a great finish.
It was. I mean, let's use that word again. It was very professional, wasn't it? I mean, there was no panic. One of the things that always, I mean, I don't know when the last time you played football was, Tom, but if you do a lung-busting run up the wing, if the ball does come to you, if you're being in full flight, I mean, this happens to me. I don't know if it happens to other people, but I'm just kind of guessing it does. But your heart is pounding. There's blood rushing all around your body, and your clarity of thought does go. You know, it takes something quite incredible, or quite an interesting level of fitness, I suppose, or professionalism to actually be able to have a cool head and know what to do in that situation. Because I find if I've made a massive run up the wing and I suddenly get the ball at my feet, I kind of panic. My control isn't as good. You know, everything kind of goes wrong once I'm knackered.
Yeah, I think it was a surprisingly... Well, it was a very clever, very good finish. I think a lot of people were surprised by the quality of the finish. Højbjerg's maybe not a player you expect to, you know, to show that level of quality and a difficult chance one-on-one in the box. But yeah, he did it, and I think I think he has been the difference, isn't he? Like he's been pretty good all season. To be fair, he was good under Hughes, but he just drives that team onwards. And you know, captain at 23. You know, you know, if we can keep hold of Højbjerg, he would stay at Saints and he'll be our captain for many years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love Højbjerg, and I think, yeah, the performance he put in against Brighton, yeah, was top drawer. It was kind of top captain material, wasn't it? You know, we've got a captain who looks like he's willing to, you know, die for the team.
Yeah.
as it were. And of course, I suppose the most important thing about that all is that it actually brought us onto level points with Brighton. So they stayed a little bit ahead of us because of their goal difference. But that now, or after that day, that had 3 teams, including Burnley, all on 33 points. And Cardiff, who I'm maybe going to go as far as saying is we're pretty much cheated in that game against Chelsea.
Yeah, it was terrible, that Chelsea.
And now 5 points behind. Obviously, since that Burnley had another win at the weekend, that game was so inexplicably important for Saints' survival chances. Let's say we hadn't won that, Brighton would be on 36 points along with Burnley, and it would just be us, the only team kind of dangling in front of Cardiff, tempting them to overtake us, and they would have been within 3 points of doing so. And actually having those extra 2 points cushion above them, even if Cardiff do get a weird result and win a game, there's still more points to catch up.
And also, looking at it now, Cardiff's goal difference is 16 worse than ours. So that's another point. So in reality, we're 7 points ahead of Cardiff. And it makes you think as well, we've lost 2 games against Cardiff this year. If we'd have drawn those 2 games, I know it's all being hypothetical, but they'd have 4 fewer points. We'd have 2 more points. We'd be 11 points ahead of them. This would all be academic.
Yeah, I think when we kind of get to our end of season podcast and the review of the season, how we managed to lose 2 games to Cardiff will be fairly high up the list of kind of like picking over the bones of the kind of worst parts of the season. In terms of our fixtures, I think we look okay. I think we're gonna pick up a few more results. So I'm just going to read those out to you.
Go on.
Now, Tom, and then you can maybe kind of like give a shout of what you think might happen in these games. So we've got Wolves at home next Saturday, which we'll come on to in more detail later in the show. We've then got Newcastle United away. Quite a tough fixture, but...
Well, I think the Newcastle lose at home at the weekend. I think Newcastle have won their previous 5 home games in a row. So they are very strong at their place, but they do see... a lot of people say now they might have taken their foot off the gas a little bit. Now they're sort of safe.
Yeah. Then we've got our midweek clash away to Watford, who are riding high after their semi-final win over Wolves.
Yeah. And you would hope as well with that, sometimes when players get into cup finals, they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit because no one wants to get injured, no one wants to get suspended.
Yeah. And then I think our last 3 fixtures, I'm going to say they're all totally winnable. Bournemouth at home, West Ham United at the London Olympic Stadium, and then Huddersfield at home on the last day of the season.
Yeah, you have to think that Bournemouth and West Ham will be on the beach by the time we play them.
If they're not already.
If not already. Bournemouth certainly seem to be, and as to West Ham. And then, Huddersfield. But the problem is with that one, isn't it? That's one of those stupid ones where Huddersfield relegated by a long way, then put the performance of their lives in. But
in their swan song in the Premier League.
Yeah, you'd hope it's not going to come down to that last game.
No, I would expect us to kind of be safe by then. So, looking at Cardiff's fixtures, they've also got some pretty winnable games, and for them, the next 2 games are totally key. So we may have to be kind of supporting some of our other relegation rivals, because they are away at Burnley on Saturday. I think if Burnley win that's kind of the end of any chance of Burnley being relegated, although you could argue that they've already kind of done that. And then they have Brighton away. So Cardiff got 2 big away fixtures there where they could potentially get points. Then they've got Liverpool at home, which I doubt they'll win, but weirder things have happened. Fulham away, so that could be another 3 points that they could get
win
there.
That, yeah.
Crystal Palace at home, again, they could actually win that. And then Manchester United away. So actually Cardiff have got 4 winnable fixtures in their last 6.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on this Burnley game. You can imagine that, if Burnley get another win, that puts them on 39 points.
I think
which
that
is
makes
quite
them
incredible,
safe. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still a lot to play for, but Saints have, they seem confident and they've got quality. I think the problem is we've got a lot of games that are quite unpredictable, haven't we? Like Watford away could easily lose that. Newcastle away could easily lose that. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the pressure is going to be on us to get points. So who knows? With Wolves at home, that's winnable, but Wolves are a really good team.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how they're going to be feeling after that FA Cup semi-final, but they may feel like they've got some sort of point to prove.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the table now, Wolves are at 8th, so they've got, they're on equal points with Leicester in 7th, so with a goal difference just one worse off. So they are a very good chance of being, best, I hate to say it, but, they're best of the rest thing. Which would be an incredible achievement for them. But, we owe them one because we were terrible at their place earlier this season. Absolutely awful. So you'd hope upon hope that Saints can just do it again, a professional job, and get a result against them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm starting to feel nervous now. I think this section of the show was supposed to kind of like make me feel quite confident that we're going to stay up, and it was all just about picking up a few points. But having looked at Cardiff's fixtures, it's not outside of the realms of possibility that they could be picking up another 10 or 12 points this season, which suddenly makes that kind of target a little bit harder. I suppose what Saints really need to do is get 2 more wins out of their final fixtures, and I think if they do that should be enough points. But if Cardiff go off and beat Brighton and Burnley, then it may even take more than 40 points to be safe.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Cardiff, I don't know, I can't work out with Cardiff whether they're going to be so downcast after, let's not mince the words, after being cheated by the officials in the game against Chelsea. There's 2 ways, isn't there, they can go about it. One is they're really downcast. Another, they've had a lot of terrible things happen to them this season. Obviously some way more terrible than others. And you wonder if they'll either be downcast and dejected, or Neil Warnock will foster a kind of us against them thing. And if I had any money, I'd bet it on being the second one.
Yeah. All right, I think we need to move on from Cardiff because it's just making me feel a bit nervous, which then brings us on to Friday's game against Liverpool. Now, Tom, I've got a bit of a challenge here, and I actually don't think it's going to be possible, but we're going to try and do the reverse match of the day.
Oh, yeah, I've not seen this match today, but I hear we won't even mention where we're on.
No, so, I mean, obviously, throughout the highlights, when they're talking about stuff that's happened in the game, they obviously mentioned Shane Long scoring because they showed the footage of it. But when it came to the post-match analysis, say, after the highlights been shown, I didn't detect one single mention of Southampton in that whole kind of post-match analysis, although someone did say on Twitter that they may have mentioned Southampton once, as in like Salah went past a Southampton defender, but that was it. There was nothing about how Southampton made it an interesting game, or were on top for most of the match, or really put Liverpool under pressure. It was all about Liverpool. It was so infuriating to watch, from the Southampton perspective. So apart from when we're talking about stuff that I suppose kind of the highlights, if we can go through this whole thing without mentioning Liverpool once, I think that would be quite an achievement.
We'll do our best.
Are you up for the challenge, Tom?
I'm up for the challenge.
Okay, I don't know if it's possible or not, but we'll see how we go. So, I mean, first of all, I have to say that I thought Saints started absolutely fantastically. So we went back to 3 at the back for this game, which I think is probably wise considering the opposition team's front 3. And you probably want to match that because you wouldn't want to leave any of your players isolated with any of those 3 guys. But, I mean, not only that, just from the outset, we were pressing, we were pushing, we were holding on to the ball. There were some brilliant quick exchanges between our players. The concentration levels seemed to be really high. The energy levels seemed to be really high. And we started off well, and we started creating chances immediately.
Yeah, it was clear, wasn't it, that they'd been sent out there. I think the crowd helped. I mean, John, you were there. Was the atmosphere as good as it looked?
Well, the atmosphere sounded very good from the Northern. I've got to say, in the chapel end, where I was sat with my brother-in-law and father-in-law, there were so many Liverpool fans kind of in disguise, or perhaps neutrals, that I don't think...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it did actually affect the atmosphere. I mean, the chapel isn't exactly known for its kind of overexcited atmosphere in games, but when Saints scored early on, the reaction from the crowd wasn't as big as you would have expected it to be. And I remember kind of looking around and seeing, blank faces rather than faces of total joy and enthusiasm.
Yeah. Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I did read on Twitter a bit about that, but about away fans in the sort of home end. I think the Saints were so good about that; they were so pumped, and I think that's his best team, isn't it? Maybe with Ings up front instead of Shane Long. That's his team, isn't it? That's the team he wants to play week in, week out. This 5-3-2, and you can just see how the energy levels. Ward-Prowse just snapping in at every tackle as soon as Liverpool. I mean, it said everything that they forced Klopp to change the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tells you everything about how well Saints played up until that point. And yeah, I think if we'd been up against a less imperious defender than Virgil van Dijk, we'd have, we might have been able to get a second. But credit where credit's due. We spoke about lung-busting runs earlier. Højbjerg for the goal. It's a fantastic run from deep. It just causes absolute chaos in the Liverpool defence because they just don't know what to do. Do they go and track him? Do they leave it? And then it was a surprisingly calm, measured finish. It was such a calm, measured finish from Shane Long that I was half thought that someone must have blown for offside.
Well, you thought like he did it so coolly that he couldn't have, that it couldn't be real. Well, I mean, the interesting thing about Shane Long having all of that space and all of that time right pretty much in the 6-yard box was, as you said, it was about Højbjerg. The ball was played beautifully out from the back. Bertrand cross, bring it up. But Højbjerg's lung-busting run meant that Virgil van Dijk had to follow him, and then Højbjerg did the inexplicable thing and actually beat Van Dijk to a header, flicking it on perfectly for Shane Long, who was at this point unmarked because Shane Long's man VVD had to chase after Højbjerg.
I wondered if it was something they'd worked on the training ground, because it just seemed to be because the ball in from Redmond's a weird ball. He kind of chips it, it doesn't really hit it with any pace. He kind of just dinks it towards Højbjerg, and the only thing Højbjerg can possibly do with the ball at that height that's got no pace on it whatsoever is flick it on.
Yeah.
He can't turn the pace on the ball into a goal-bound header. So I wonder if it's something that they'd worked on, because I think the only way you're ever going to get anything out of Van Dijk is to almost trick him. Do you know what I mean? Because he's not going to make a mistake. Talking about him like he's some sort of robot, but he just doesn't. He's not going to make a mistake.
No, although he was, pulled out of position in this instance, and left Shane Long with a very easy finish.
But I think with that as well, he's kind of left high and dry by his midfielders. So he kind of has, he doesn't have anything. He has to go with the man. But credit where credit's due to Saints. It was a really good move. And a really good finish. And, Tony Cascarino on Twitter was quite interesting. He was talking about Shane Long, saying that Shane Long's fourth goal, I think he said in 78 games, something like that. He just doesn't score goals. It's so strange. But when it's so strange, because he is such a good footballer, so it doesn't make any sense.
I can't believe that stat. Fourth goal in 78 games.
Well, if you think that he scored twice last season?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a long time, isn't it?
twice this season.
But he does seem to score goals against Liverpool, so maybe we should just persevere in all those games. So following that goal and delirium in the parts of the ground where Saints fans were kind of sat or stood, and then what happens is we nearly go 2-0 up. And again, it's in some ways quite a similar attack. It was a very quick break and then a cross coming in, once again from the left. Now, Shane Long here, I think in most occasions you'd expect any striker to put their foot through the ball and just finish it and blast it into the net. Shane Long does a sort of air kick here. And I've got a theory as to why he did this. He knew Virgil van Dijk was behind him. And he knew this was probably the best chance in the history of the universe for Virgil van Dijk to score an own goal, giving Southampton a goal in front of the Northern end. I think that must be why Shane Long left it. It's because he knew that, okay, if he scored a brace against Liverpool, that's great, we all go into delirium. But how much better, how much sweeter would it have been if it had bounced off Virgil van Dijk and actually gone into the net rather than just over the goal?
I mean, it would have been really something. I think that would have been in front of the Northern, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Which would have been real bants, as young people would say. But yeah, I just think with Shane, he seemed to almost like take his eye off it. And he just sort of thought, that's the chance. That's the chance Danny Ings would have buried. But he just sort of took his eye off it. But that's, I know we don't want to talk about Liverpool, but that's the difference, isn't it? The difference is like they can call off, like if their top striker's missing, Sturridge comes in.
Yeah.
If our top striker's missing, it's quite interesting. Charlie Austin can't get a sniff at the moment, but it just shows the difference. I felt sorry for Shane Long as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely gutting because, I mean, getting a brace against Liverpool so early on, it would have just been absolutely fantastic. And I think it would have had Liverpool at absolute panic stations as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Which may or may not have been a good thing to do because, I mean, as the second half wore on, they started to look a bit panicked at 1-1. But, you imagine had we had them 2-0 up or 2-1, then I think they really would have started panicking and maybe committing too many men forward and leaving themselves quite exposed. But yeah, so the first half continues. So I've got to admit here that I actually missed Liverpool's equaliser. So, I mean, we all know Freddie from The Ugly Inside. So I met up with Freddie for a drink before the game, and he took me to a brewery near St Mary's. And I had a drink there called EXP2, which I think stands for Experiment 2. And so by the point this kind of like midway through the first half, my mouth had gone really, really dry from this weird beer that I'd been drinking with Freddie. And I also desperately needed a wee. So I kind of ran down and then heard this kind of like faint cheer. And I wasn't sure if it was a kind of an ironic cheer because the referee had given us something or if it was something worse. And then obviously I walked out into the stadium and I could see that it was 1-1.
Yeah, I think, Salah was offside. Yeah, first and foremost. And it makes me laugh because I was watching something and they said, he's just offside. It doesn't matter. Offside's a zero something. You're either onside or you're offside. And it is frustrating because, big players, big clubs, they get these marginal calls, and not even the marginal ones. Like, we spoke about Cardiff, Chelsea, they get the huge ones wrong. He was offside. And even then, it's a very unlucky goal. Because if you look, he actually heads it into the back of Vestergaard.
Yeah.
But typical, isn't it? Like, Keita not scored for Liverpool this entire season, scores his first goal. Salah, longest run in the history of mankind, scores a goal. It's like, it's always Saints.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on the point there. Basically, the Liverpool equaliser shouldn't have stood. In the build-up, Salah was offside. There's a little bit of fault, I think, for Saints players maybe being too focused on, why hasn't the offside been given rather than actually really focusing on what was going on in the there and now, not playing to the whistle. But
Saints did seem to kind of stop.
Yeah.
which was a bit weird. Like, because I think they thought the ball had gone out or was going to go out, I think, and they kind of just stopped. And I don't know whether they just lost their concentration just for half a second.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they kind of like stopped in disbelief at the officials, but I mean, we've had so many bad official decisions. You'd have thought they could just quite easily take that in their stride.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the things which I found quite interesting is a friend of mine who supports Liverpool watched it on the telly, and so he had the benefit of the studio analysis, and they talked about VAR, and they said that VAR wouldn't have ruled out the goal because there was another phase of play after the offside and the build-up. Now, that just seems like a really weird rule to me. Or is it a case of we've just got kind of pundits that have played for the big six teams, or played for Liverpool in this case, and therefore are just trying to argue the toss on it going in Liverpool's favour? Or is this actually genuine? Because if it is genuine, and you can see from the kind of build-up that there definitely should have been an offside and therefore the goal shouldn't have happened, yet you would still allow the goal because there was another phase of play. It's like one of those kind of weird British rules where if you bring evidence too late to the courtroom, it can't be considered, even if it proves someone's innocence or guilt. It's like, we don't care what the actual right answer is, we just want to make sure that the process and the rules have been followed to the book.
I agree. I mean, it's like with offside where similar vibe to when people play the ball forward and the guy who eventually scores the goal is offside, but the person who receives the ball isn't. They then run on, cross to the bloke who was offside when the ball was played. He scores, and they say, yeah, that's totally fine because he wasn't receiving the ball in the first place. And, you know, like, and it's just a weird decision. I mean, at the end of the day, Salah had been flagged for offside like he should have been. That ball wouldn't have been crossed in, and Case wouldn't have scored that goal. It's quite simple. But I feel, you just feel that no one really knows what the rules are anymore.
Well, I mean, for what should be a black and white, I mean, an offside decision is very, very easy to explain, but the active players, inactive players, were they impacting on the play? You know, the whole kind of like interfering with play. I can't remember. Is there kind of like a Bill Shankly quote where it's kind of like, if a player's not interfering with play, then what the hell's he doing on the pitch? You know. Yeah,
completely. Yeah, it's a great quote. I was about to say exactly the same thing. Yeah. I think it is Shankly. So I completely agree. It was just a very, I think there's a number of things. I do think he was offside. It was close, but he was offside, and then I just think we kind of stopped concentrating. And Katie, just I don't know. Vestergaard was seemingly on his arse for some reason. I don't really understand it. Yeah, a bit of a disappointing goal to concede.
It was disappointing, and it looked like Gunn might have got to it as well on another day. Anyway, roll forward, second half, and Saints continue to do well. We continue to limit Liverpool to not very many chances. Admittedly, we don't create too many ourselves. But Saints are frustrating the opposition. They're keeping the ball well, they're passing the ball well, they're pressing when they need to press, they're sitting back a little bit when they need to sit back and defend and soak up the pressure. And throughout the second half, I thought Saints were kind of continuing to grow in strength and in purpose. And then by the time we got a corner in the 80th minute, we really looked like we were going to push up and try and score another goal. And ultimately, I think that was kind of our undoing. It was trying so hard to actually get the winner against Liverpool that left us exposed for the breakaway from the Saints corner. I think Josh Sims received the ball kind of on the edge of the box, and it was pinging around a bit, and he was trying to make something happen with it when we lost the ball, and then Liverpool broke away incredibly quickly.
I was surprised that we left one man back when you know that Liverpool's pace, all of them, Firmino, Mane, we all know about, and Salah, all incredibly quick. And I was just very surprised that we'd with the game finally poised, we weren't losing, that we'd just left Ryan Bertrand back, because they have, arguably, probably, maybe Redmond aside, the 3 fastest players on the pitch. So I was just very surprised. You know, it felt almost a bit naive of Saints.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a strange one. I suppose, I mean, you kind of have that kind of like argument. It's like, do you leave the balance? Yeah, if you're going to leave too many players back, then they don't have to bring as many players back to defend the corner, and they, you know, perhaps more primed for the attack. But you're right, their players are so quick. They are a side that are very good on the counter attack, and we saw that. And funny enough, I think, you know, Bertrand, despite being kind of one man against an onslaught, I think of 3 or 4 players from the opposition kind of charging towards goal, Salah obviously had Firmino up to his left, and so Bertrand couldn't commit to Salah because then he knows Firmino is going to get released, and he can't commit to Firmino, otherwise he knows Salah's going to go straight down the middle. And actually, by the time Salah took his shot, I think in the stadium, I didn't think we'd kind of done enough, and perhaps we should have committed to some sort of challenge earlier. But actually, watching the highlights back, it wasn't a really simple kind of one-on-one finish. You know, he did actually have to work quite hard, and it was a really, really good finish, and I don't think most strikers would have scored that chance.
Yeah, it was a lovely it was almost like a pitching wedge, wasn't it? I just dinked it past Angus Gunn, but I just do think we gave ourselves a bit of a problem. They've just got so much pace all over the pitch, even their fullbacks incredibly quick. But to be fair, you know, we're talking about bad things here. Saints limited Liverpool to 5 shots on target. Not many teams have done that, and if you look at how well like Yoshida played, how well Bednarek played, you know, how well Vestergaard played, they all played really well, and I can't remember a Saints defeat that left me feeling so positive.
Well, yeah, and I think on that kind of like positive note, if we, as a comparison, think about the fixture at Anfield, so the corresponding fixture earlier this season, Liverpool didn't even need to get out of second gear to beat us 3-0.
We just rolled. It was that 3-0 at half time, wasn't it? And we just rolled over.
Yeah, I mean, it was. We were 2 goals. Yeah, Wesley hit own goal, and then by the 20th minute we were 2-0 down, and then they got their third just before half time.
Yeah, Matip scored, didn't he?
Yeah, Matip scored, and but even after 20 minutes, we were basically dead and buried in that game. And you look at the difference between Saints back in September and Saints now, where we're kind of, you know, the better side in the majority of the game. You know, right up until pretty much the 80th minute, Saints were the better side. Liverpool were clearly the better side in the last 10 minutes, but I think at that point Saints felt so deflated having you know, conceded that second Liverpool goal that we really kind of switched off.
Yes, I agree, and I think almost like Saints gave so much, didn't they? That by the third goal, they just looked like they had nothing left. They almost had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, I think kind of adrenaline keeps you going, doesn't it? You know, it's that hope kind of gives you some extra impetus or some extra strength, and once the hope was gone, it was over.
But I think Saints can take a lot of credit. I know that we didn't get it on Match of the Day, but you know, every player, Saints player to the man, played really well. And what players we found, you know, in Valerie, you know, what a transformation in James Ward-Prowse, what a leader there is in Højbjerg. You know, all these players, they can play for Saints for the next, you know, 10 years, if we're lucky enough. So we've got real talent. I think it just kind of it showed that they're going to give everyone a game. I think you're absolutely right. Like before, we just used to roll over against the big boys, and you know, we were talking on, and we were saying, yeah, I think they would have. I thought they'd have beaten anyone outside the top 6, but you know, other people saying they would have beaten anyone outside the top 2 with that performance. They were so good.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely do. I think if we'd put in that level of performance against any other side in the Premier League, with the exception of Manchester City, we'd have had a really, really good chance of winning, or at least getting something out of it. I suppose it's a bit like you look at the big performances that we've put in under Ralph Hasenhüttl against the big sides, and you've got the games against Manchester City. We've played and we lost, although put in quite a good performance. We beat Arsenal 3-2. We beat Tottenham 2-1. We gave Manchester United a really, really good game and ended up losing 3-2. We gave Liverpool a really, really good game and ended up losing 3-1. And I don't think those kind of 6 points that you won by beating Tottenham and Arsenal, I don't think, those points that we've got from that you get unless you are kind of like really kind of battling and really going for it in those big games.
John, your phone dropped out and then you called me back.
Yeah.
Just so you know that.
Yeah, that's okay. I seamlessly covered to you, Tom, but now you've pointed that out. I'm going to have to edit it out.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that, John. Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you get VAR, you get a bit more, hopefully you get a bit more equality between the big boys and everyone else. But ultimately, Saints, you get the feeling now that with Ralph Hasenhüttl, Saints are more in charge of their own destiny. Perhaps at any point since any point since Koeman. And yes, there've been some disappointing results. West Ham at home, Cardiff at home, the two that definitely spring to mind. But you can't, for players, he's got exactly the same group of players that Hughes had. He's done incredibly well.
In fact, he's got a few fewer players than what Hughes had, really, right. Because
He's got no Gabbiadini, he's got no Cedric.
No Wesley Hoot either. Perhaps maybe there's an advantage in that. As well, I probably do want to pick up on a point that you made just a few moments ago about Jan Valery. Is in his first few games in the Premier League, he looked shaky. And you can imagine a manager like Mark Hughes giving that opportunity, seeing the player look shaky and go, no, they're not worth the risk. I'm going to stick with Cedric, who I know isn't quite good enough for the Premier League, but at least you kind of know what you're going to get. Valery is turning into an absolute player. He is Premier League quality, unquestionably. And I had my doubts when I first saw him, playing. I think that game against Cardiff, he looked totally lost at sea. And now we're seeing a player who I think could easily grow into being one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League.
Yeah, he looks just so much more confident. He's also got a real physical strength and a real ability to actually defend, which is we've not really had that in a right back for a few years. Because certainly I don't think Cedric's strength is in defending, but he is getting forward. He whips in a few deadly balls, against Liverpool, and he made his opposing, but the opposite. Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's probably one of the best young right backs in the Premier League. If you'd have said which one is the one of the best, the one that everyone's raving about, you'd have said, well, it's the Southampton bloke. So he did so well, and I think, the fans have really responded to him, and they want to see these young players. Sims, people just love him, don't they? Well, I do anyway.
I think maybe our unrequited love for Josh Sims is maybe more than he deserves. I don't know. But it's great to see him in and around the squad again, and he does have so much pace, and he does cause teams problems, and.
Also, he's positive, isn't he? Josh Sims always tries to make something happen.
Yeah.
That's what he does. And it doesn't always come off, but he makes things happen. So, more Sims, please.
Okay, Tom. So let's move on from that. I'm afraid that we failed miserably in our kind of match of the day challenge of not mentioning the opposition during the analysis. It's actually incredibly difficult to do. So, maybe we should stop kind of moaning about match of the day and say, well done. That was probably some sort of challenge, and they've proved themselves to be much greater than us at being able to talk about only one team in a match which requires two.
Yeah, I think we have to be realistic. Once you're up against Liverpool and they're chasing the Premier League, and I think a lot of neutrals do want them to win it, then you're never going to get mentioned. But would have been nice to win, because then they would have definitely had to mention us.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hopefully next season we can maybe actually see one of those big performances against Liverpool or Man City ending up in a victory. Although I'm sure after that all the analysis will be on what went wrong for the big side rather than what went right for Saints. Anyway, let's stop moaning. Let's try and be positive. I think the game is a real marker for how far Saints have come under Hasenhüttl. And actually, despite our nervy conversations earlier about the upcoming fixtures and fixture lists, and Cardiff's kind of run in the potential points that they've got, you're right. If we play like we played against Liverpool for the rest of the season, there is no way we can go down. We will definitely be picking up points in some of those games against the middling teams. And, if we pick up a few more points, we'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the good thing is it's in our control.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Wolves next. How are you feeling about this one, Tom?
God, I mean, I do think we owe them one, because the performance under Hughes was, even by Mark Hughes standards, it was really bad when it was 2-0. I don't know, will they be dejected after coming so close to FA Cup glory? Will they be pumped because best of the rest? They've got really good players, but we're at home. I do think we can beat them. And I think Saints will know if they beat them and Burnley beat Cardiff, then that it's not it, but it's not far off it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really big. I mean, if we can get results against Wolves and Newcastle the next couple of games, which they would do a whole load of good for Saints, kind of pushing towards safety. I think Wolves are an interesting side. I think they've got players that can do damage, haven't they? They've got players that can turn nothing into something. And I think that's my biggest fear. I think at some point one of the Wolves players is probably going to score an outstanding goal against Southampton, which means we probably need 2 or 3 goals to win the match, which we are capable of, but it does require us to kind of push forward and continue attacking and continue to create chances the whole way through the match, because I don't think we'll be able to defend a 1-0 lead against Wolves like we did against Brighton, for example.
Yeah, and I also think that something that seems to be happening under Hasenhüttl is Saints play better when they have less of the ball.
Yeah.
So we teams that like Liverpool that want to come and dominate the ball, we love that. Teams where we've kind of played them and they've sort of said, well, you're at home, so go on then, you have a go. We've sort of almost struggled a little bit. Cardiff was a classic example. They just gave us the ball and we kind of panicked with the ball.
Yeah. So I guess then that's hopefully the fact that Wolves are a positive attacking side that we'll be able to make the most of it.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
So Tom, I mean, I think we've covered quite a lot here. Do you have anything else that you think we need to bring up on this episode, or should we be waiting until next week?
I think let's wait until next week. Big game on Saturday, very exciting game.
Okay, all right. So we'll leave it at that. Tom Parker's got nothing to add. I've run out of notes on my kind of iPad, and also I've noticed that we've not had any emails from you in the last week. Although we did have quite a few in the week before, so kind of big thanks to Graham, Duncan, Jason, all for kind of emailing in, Nick as well, and Neil have all kind of been in touch. But if you do want to get in touch in between now and our next episode, do say saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. You can also tweet us at saintsfcpodcast on Twitter, or put your comments into the YouTube comments section if you're watching this on the Ugly Inside YouTube channel. Tom, it's been great to have you on the phone again and talk Saints with you.
It's lovely to be back, John.
Yeah, pleased to have you back in the country, and I hope it's not getting you down too much. Anyway, it's bye-bye from me.
Good. It's a good evening from me.
See you later.